What I want to do today is actually give you 7 ungodly habits that I know for a fact a majority of people are doing right now in their lives. And these habits are not leading to the outcomes that they're expecting in their pocketbook. But not only that, it's leading us to do other things, because we know that the Bible tells us that it's not money that's the root of all evil, but it's for the love of money that is the root of all evil. We're going to go to Proverbs, and I'm going to give you what the ungodly habit is, and then I'm going to give you the Bible verse to go along with that ungodly habit. And the Bible verse is actually going to be the solution to fixing that ungodly habit. First ungodly habit that we're going to talk about is paying yourself first. And I already know I'm going to ruffle some feathers with this one, so let's go ahead and just jump straight into the text. Proverbs chapter 3 verse 9. Honor the Lord from your wealth and from the first of all of your produce, so your barns will be filled with plenty and your vats will overflow with new wine. So a lot of conventional wisdom on YouTube will tell you to pay yourself first. Things that say when you first get your paycheck and when you first earn some money, first thing you need to do is you need to set back a little bit of money into an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of expenses. Before I got deep into the word and started really studying what God tells us about this, I always thought that that was sound advice. Saving and keeping back is biblical. I'm not saying that saving is not biblical, but what I am saying is that God does make it very, very clear in his word that we should be giving God his take first. And if you really understand this, you will know that God and everything we have in our life is God's. It's not ours. All of our money, all of our possessions, anything that we do on this earth belongs to him. With that mindset, it's really important that you keep in mind that you have to pay him first, right? You have to take care of kingdom business first. And I say it all the time, God gives to givers. And so you give to God's house, you give to God's ministry, you give to his church, you give to his kingdom, and everything else will be taken care of. We see it right here in Proverbs where he's talking about make sure it's the first fruits. Everything you do to honor God, you have to give the first fruits. That's how the kingdom expands. That's how we build his kingdom here on earth. The second ungodly habit, and this one is a trigger warning for those who are watching, is pretending to be rich, pretending to look wealthy. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 7. There is one who pretends to be rich, but has nothing. Another pretends to be poor, but has great wealth. I know I've talked about this on my channel too as well, but there is a thing not only in the Bible, but just conventional wisdom that tells you that it's important to not to look wealthy or give off the appearance that you have money or if you're wealthy. Because at the end of the day, let's think practically here. If you're doing that, you're only doing that to idolize yourself, all about your ego. It's kind of all about you. We really get caught up in this because sometimes we can make really poor decisions based on how we want people to perceive us, how we want people to treat us when we walk inside of a room, or how we want them to talk to us, deal with us. That's a hard issue. It says again, there is one who pretends to be rich but has nothing. Another pretends to be poor but has great wealth. The ones that obviously understand how to get wealth, they're not trying to go out there and buy designer clothes, buy the most expensive cars. They're not doing any of those things. They're living modestly. It's biblical to live below your means. It's biblical to be content in what you have. Okay, and the third ungodly habit that I want to talk about is laziness. Proverbs chapter 10 verse 4 says this: poor is he who works with a negligent hand, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. This is where I hear a lot of bad information online and from people that I have conversations around about this, where they're always talking about like building their own business, being their own boss. And there's nothing wrong with those things whatsoever. But I really like to warn people about that, because sometimes people think making their own business and being able to set their own schedules and do their own things actually means that they work less. But biblically speaking, working is what gets blessed. Not working, it does not get blessed. And so I always get kind of skeptical when I hear advice that talks about 4-hour work week, or like, working 5 hours a week and making X amount of money. Like, all of these things are not biblically sound, and it's not even true half the time. I've never ran across really wealthy people that didn't work insanely hard. I've been a CFO. I've worked in tech businesses. I've seen tech CEOs that have made millions of dollars. All of these people work a lot. You can't be lazy and expect to make money. We want instant gratification, and to be honest, none of that really exists. You need to get your butt up and you need to work. That's what the word tells us. Okay, and the fourth ungodly principle that I want to talk about is using debt. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 7, and it says this: "The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower becomes the lender's slave." You've heard this before. The borrower is slave to the lender. I say it all the time. If you really want to get to the next level in your life, you have to get out of debt. One of the main principles I talk about is making sure, obviously, you pay God first, not pay yourself first. You can't pay God first if you're in debt. You have to understand what is your income in relation to your debt profile. And you got to figure it out. Either you got to get a second, third, fourth job, whatever, to pay off your debt faster. Then that's exactly what you have to do. As long as you have debt in your life, you will never be able to advance. You'll never be able to advance the kingdom. You'll never be able to help your children, save for your children's college. Like, all of these things will get held back if you're in debt. The rich don't have debt. They rule over the poor. They're the ones sending the money out so people can have money. And you have to be very mindful about the risk of debt, even while you use it for investment purposes. Like, that is just one of those things you always have to be thinking about and being very, very conscious of. The next ungodly habit that I want to talk about is not being humble. And so we're going to still be in Proverbs chapter 22 on this one, and we're going to actually be in verse 4. So a little bit before that: "The reward of humility and fear of the Lord are riches, honor, and life." Humility first, fear of the Lord second. That brings riches, honor, and life. To me, it doesn't necessarily have to be riches, but humility plays such a big, big role inside of this world. And there's so many people who struggle with humility. They're not aware that they're not humble. Find the nearest like 3 to 5 people around you that can actually tell you the truth about yourself, and ask them, do you think I'm humble? Do you think, like, be honest with me. Do you think I'm humble? Do I struggle with this? Do you think I can be egotistical at times? Like, really take an audit of this, because at the end of the day, if you have no humility whatsoever, then you'll never be vulnerable enough to even come to the throne boldly and ask God to really work out those things in your heart that you need to work out. Humility leads to fear of the Lord. Fear of the Lord leads to wisdom, discernment, understanding, all of these things. And all of that leads to peace in your life. All of that leads to prosperity in your life. And so you can't have any of that until you figure out humility. Ungodly habit number 6 is one of those interesting ones that I promise you, when you hear it, you're going to be like, wow, that's kind of crazy. Focusing on building wealth. Proverbs chapter 23, verse 4. And honestly, when I read this, it literally smacked me in the face, because I was like, yo, that's actually crazy that the Bible even says that. A lot of people actually don't tell you this about money whatsoever, but I'm not afraid to tell you, because I like speaking the truth. "Do not weary yourself to gain wealth. Cease from your consideration of it. When you set your eyes on it, it is gone. For wealth certainly makes itself wings like an eagle that flies towards the heavens." God tells us not to worry about building wealth. I know there's so many influencers and money people out there in the world that are just going to 100% disagree with me on this, but the Bible tells us not to focus on building wealth. And why would the Bible say this? Let's just go to what Jesus said in Matthew 6:24. "We cannot serve two masters. Our heart has one throne. Either God sits on that heart or money sits on that heart." Okay? What you need to be concerned with, making sure you have the right heart posture when it comes to your life, getting closer to God, and have Him direct your path, because that's wise. Right? That's understanding of what He actually is calling us to do. When Solomon was about to be anointed king of Israel, he went to the throne boldly, not asking for riches, not asking for money. He went to the throne asking for wisdom. And because he asked God for wisdom, God was pleased with this, and then He blessed him with riches, with honor, all these different things. Our pursuit of God, our pursuit of Jesus, our pursuit of that relationship, that is the primary focus. The byproduct of our pursuit, our faithfulness, if you will, the byproduct of that is riches, honor, and life, right? These are things that happen because we are faithful to God. We have to stop focusing on generational wealth, because it's all talk. At the end of the day, it's all talk. You hear it online all the time. We got to break generational curses. We got to build generational wealth, this, that, and the third. Listen, stop talking about it. Stop focusing on it. That ain't the focus. That's not what he wants us to focus on. He wants us to focus on him. He wants to focus on righteousness. He wants us to focus on his kingdom. So anyway, I had to get to that. I'm sorry. I'm really, really passionate about that one because I know there's a lot of people out there who are pushing a lot of crap down our throats about generational wealth and how far behind we are as a culture and all these different things. I'm telling you right now, we don't need to listen to that crap. We need to be standing on his word. And what his word says is not to focus on it and cease from our consideration of it. Amen. All right. And the last ungodly habit is keeping money to ourselves. So let's go to Proverbs 19, verse 17. One who is gracious to a poor man lends to the Lord, and he will repay him for his good deeds. This one is very, very simple. And I've talked about this multiple times already on this channel, but I'll say it again. God gives to givers. God's original intention for money was for us to be generous. It wasn't for us to do anything else with and store up for ourselves. We can't take it with us when we're going to be in his presence one day. So what's the point in this crazy accumulation of wealth all the time and just focusing on that? We need to be using that for the expansion of his kingdom. All you got to do is listen also to what Jesus had to say about this with the parable of the talents, or the parable of the minas. The master is upset with the servants that didn't do anything with their talents, but the ones that did do something with the talents, he blessed them even further. A lot of financial influencers, they're not going to tell you that at the end of the day, right? They're not going to tell you that, but that's also because they're not following what the text is telling us. When I was reading all this, I got smacked in the face a couple of times. I'm not going to lie, because I've been trained my whole life thinking that paying myself first, storing things up for myself, and being able to pass on money, to my kids was what the intention was. Now, I will say God did tell us to leave an inheritance for our children. That was so we could teach them also what it means to be productive for the kingdom. And we need to be able to start working towards these things. And what I'll say is, the moment we start focusing on godly habits, what tends to happen in our lives is that everything we've actually wanted and ever imagined when it came to jobs, career opportunities, money, all these different things start to come into place. And so anyway, I just want to leave you with that. Thank you so much for watching this video. I have a newsletter that I do every single month that gives out even more practical tips. So if you want to catch any of those tips that come out on a monthly basis, click the link in the description below, fill out your email, and you can join the community. Godly tips about your finances and how to walk in the financial life that God wants us to walk in based on what his word says. And we will see you on the next one. All right. Bye.